I just tell the truth, and telling the truth is crazy in a world full of lies. If you mix brilliance with bravery, that we can ignite something. Even this conversation alone can ignite the people.
The time is now to express and for people to believe in themselves. The time is now for it to be okay to be great. People in this world shun people for being great, for being a bright color, for standing out. But the time is now to be okay to be the greatest you.
I'm standing here with my law enforcement partners in the Gilgo task force to announce the indictment of defendant Rex Andrew HEUERMANN.
Sex workers found tied up, their bodies wrapped in camouflage burlap, dumped near Gilgo Beach.
Off Ocean Parkway here in Long Island, off the sandy shore. This is where a gruesome discovery took place. Off the water here, 4 victims were discovered, wrapped in burlap, badly decomposed. Megan Waterman, Melissa Bartholomew, Amber Costello, and Maureen Brainerd Barnes, known as the Gilgo 4 because of the proximity to Gilgo Beach.
Hey guys, what's up? It's your girl Kelly. We are back with another video. If you are new to the channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button, guys. If you are into true crime stories, news, and politics, then I think that you would love the channel, and I would very much love for you to subscribe. And if you are a returning listener or subscriber, guys, thank you as always for being a friend. I really do appreciate it, and if you could interact with the video, whatever you can do, give it a like, give us a comment, subscribe, go follow me on Twitter. I appreciate it all. I really do, guys, and I thank you. So today we're going to get into this story that has been somewhat widely covered on the news, I would say. You know, I've been seeing this a lot everywhere. People have been talking about it somewhat, but I just haven't really understood a lot of the nuances in this case. You know, I've been following it as much as I can. You know, it just hasn't like grabbed me and really like gotten a hold of me, at least not yet. So there's a lot going on here in this case, so I want to break down exactly kind of what happened, and then I will try to wait to give my opinion till the very end, but I would love to know what you guys think about this.
When I took office in January of 2022, I made Gilgo a priority.
The Gilgo Beach murders traumatized and captivated Long Island just east of New York City for more than a decade. Now the suspect as unthinkable as the murders themselves.
This is a shock. Like I said, 29 years here. I mean, I've seen some things, but this is wicked.
Rex HEUERMANN, 59, charged with 3 murders. Today, the investigation continuing. He faces a possible 4th murder charge. Investigators say they identified HEUERMANN using DNA from the bodies of the victims and from witness descriptions of him and the car he drove. Investigators obtained hundreds of search warrants and subpoenas linking HEUERMANN to temporary burner phones and fake email accounts. Investigators allege he used them to communicate with his victims, taunt the family of one of them, and search for information related to the investigation into the long unsolved murders.
We recognize that these crimes may have happened years ago, but that pain continues.
Investigators' biggest break came when they were surveilling HEUERMANN at his Midtown Manhattan office. He was eating pizza and discarded it in a public trash can. DNA from the pizza crust, say investigators, linked HEUERMANN to the murders. HEUERMANN has been charged with the murders of Melissa Bartholomew, Amber Lynn Costello, and Megan Waterman, all sex workers, all in their 20s. The investigation is continuing, and he has also been named as a suspect in the murder of Maureen Brainerd Barnes. In all, there were 11 bodies found in and around Gilgo Beach, only 3 and possibly a 4th now linked to one alleged killer so far. Investigators say they've made the arrest now because they feared HEUERMANN could strike again.
One of the reasons why we had to take this.
So what do you guys think about it? I will say this, and I just want to put this out there because, like I said, I want to wait, you know, to give my opinion. Okay, we saw the map. They talked about 11 bodies found on this one strip of area on Long Island in New York City, right? Well, there's so many different levels to this story and so many different things going on. There was previous corruption within the sheriff's department or the investigative unit that was looking into all of these crimes. There was prostitution happening with the alleged suspect and also with some of the investigators. We're going to get into that story later. There was all kinds of shit going on. There was also other murders who were dumped on this same strip of land or very, very close to it that are not even discussed anymore. So when this first came out, if you guys remember, it seemed like almost, at least this is my recollection, and I could be wrong because it seems like, I don't know, a lot of the story is being memory holed right now. And if you go on Google, some of the things you can't even like find that I was seeing right at the very beginning. It's very odd the way that happens. And if you guys know, then you know. I mean, they do this all the time. But when they first arrested this guy, they made it seem like they had caught the serial killer who was responsible for all of the murders that have been reported on throughout all of the years on this Gilgo Beach area, in New York. But that's not the case. They've only been able to link via DNA that they allege was found on the victims to this Rex Heuermann. Now, there's still like 4 or 5 bodies that they haven't even identified who these people are, which I find to be astounding. So it's very curious in my opinion, but because it's like, well, what about these other people? What about these other murders? And do y'all have any idea who committed these? And then my thing is, it really starts to raise the red flags and set off alarms in my mind is that, why would there be multiple killers if Rex Heuermann is, in fact, only responsible, like they said, for 4 of these crimes, 4 of these murders? Who did the rest? Who are the rest of the victims? And why is it that all these different murderers, why is it that they all knew to go and dump their victims all in the same area? Does that not sit well with like everyone? Like, what do you guys think about that? Like, am I onto something there? Am I crazy? I don't know. I would love to know your thoughts, guys, because this whole case, honestly, if I'm being honest with you guys, it stinks to me. And I don't like it. I don't like the way that it smells at all. All of these people, there's still 1, 2, I think there's also a child that's been unidentified. There's more than this. There's an unidentified female right here. So there's like 4 bodies that they still have not even identified who these people are. And it just seems like once we get into some of the corruption that was happening in the police force, like before they quote unquote solved these murders, I don't know. It seems like there's been a lot that has been mishandled in this case, and that they're just kind of desperate to put this thing to bed. But we'll get into that. Again, I don't want to like speculate or like put anything in anyone's heads because I really want to know what y'all's opinions are on this case. So let's get into some of the evidence that was found.
Apparently, authorities found between 200 and 300 firearms. They were locked in a vault in his basement. Pistols, revolvers, semi-automatic rifles. It only seems...
And just to pause it right, I just think it's so funny. All of these like liberals and these like lefty goons that are on like TV that speculate about all these things when they like talk about how like Rex Heuermann had like 200, 300 guns. And then they're like clutching their pearls. They're like, oh my God, like what does someone need with all those guns? Weird. Okay.
It's like a fraction of those were...
So yeah, they start to like get real shook up about 200 to 300 guns. I got news flash for you guys. In the South, that's low key. That's nothing. Like when it comes to like your real true avid gun owner, your gun fan might have double, triple that. And it's not for any sort of like weird or like a nefarious reason. It's like people just really do love guns. If you're a gun nut, then that's just it takes on a life of its own. So I don't find this portion of the so-called evidence to be so like telling or weird or just shocking like all these other people have kind of speculated on.
actually registered with New York State. The Suffolk County Police Commissioner, Rodney Harrison, told Fox News,
And New York
anytime
has
anybody
some
has
of the
that type of
strictest gun
arsenal,
laws
we have
ever.
some concerns. Why do you think that's of interest to authorities?
Well, there are two ways it can be of interest. One is we don't even know how these women died.
Right.
So Lord knows if we can link a gun or the notion of a gun to any of the
I
women.
thought they said they were strangled, but I could be wrong about that.
Separately, there's a doctrine in the law called plain view. If I'm legally in your house searching for the women's clothing, as an example, and I see an illegal gun in
How do you know it's
plain
illegal?
view, I was allowed
Like,
to
what
be
the
there to look for the clothing, but oops, in front of my face is something illegal. I can take it even if it's not in
really?
that list on the warrant. So it's possible, I haven't read all the papers here, that they could go in and say, we are seizing the guns because some of them are illegal.
I want to move on to this very weird item. Something investigators said was out of place. A doll. A life-sized doll in a glass case
What?
that wasn't in any of his children's rooms. That's what's
What?
being reported. Why is that of interest? Why is that being taken out?
That's bizarre.
Okay. The allegation here is that each of these women was a sex worker, an escort. If I understand the allegation, it is that he hired them and then murdered them. And so they are trying to show, I assume, some particular sexual fascination, fetish, or something.
What?
I get it. That's
What does the doll
important
look
from
like?
an investigative perspective. Whether it's going to be admissible at trial is a different issue. And here's why. If I'm charged with murder,
And
you're not allowed to
it's very
say,
important. What does this doll look like? Now I'm curious. Now I need to know. I had not heard about this doll. And it's, again, maybe it's just me. I haven't really been actively keeping up with this case because, like I said, it just hasn't grabbed me yet. I mean, it's obviously tragic, but it's just not. I don't know. I can't explain it. I kind of feel it's giving me a bit of rushed investigation, rushed arrest, kind of like Brian Koberger vibes. And I'm not saying that either one of these men is innocent or guilty. I don't know. That's not up to me. I'm just speculating on what is being presented as evidence to the public as of right now as the reason for accusing someone of such a heinous crime. And it just seems a bit strange to have committed multiples of murders and not have glaring, just completely slam dunk evidence on these people. That to me is just a bit bizarre.
Pick something out if they think there might be DNA on it. They might think they have DNA on it. They can match up to DNA on the crime scene or the bodies. Do they just pick things out? Oh, that might have DNA.
that would depend on what the warrant says.
Okay.
Okay. Because remember the plain view thing. Number one, let's assume the warrant lists bed sheets. I've got that.
Yep.
Used condoms. I've got that.
Ew.
And then they see this doll. It's not on the warrant. So then it has to be apparent, plain view, that this is illegal or evidence.
That's wild.
If there's this speculation thing, a judge might say, you could not seize it.
Let me amplify that for a moment, because this ties into the other thing that they found. And I'm going to tie in the doll with this other piece of evidence. So there was apparently, they removed a portrait of what appears to be a battered woman. I actually saw the photo. I don't remember if it was in the New York Post or the Daily Mail, but you see it. And it appears to be a blonde woman with bruises on her face. Now, you might be saying, why are they taking that? Why did they take the doll? This is what my take is, and I'm curious your take. I think it is imperative for investigators to show that those burner phones and those searches on his burner phones are his, right? And I think, showing that the burner phones were his, it helps to track his location. It happens to show that he might have been contacting the victims or the victim's family. So it's very important to show those phones, those internet searches are for him. Now, what am I talking about with the searches? I'm going to list some of them out. They're really disgusting, but I think they're important here. One of them is girl begging for rape porn. And again, this is what he allegedly searched on burner phones using fake accounts. Pretty girl with bruised face porn. Torture redhead porn. Girl with face beat up. So couldn't investigators say, hey, listen, we know this is his phone. We know this is his searches. He's got a portrait of a battered woman. He's got a life-sized sex doll, if that's what it is. Can investigators use that to show that this is his property? This is his phone?
The answer is yes, as an investigative tool, maybe or maybe not at trial. So here's what's going on. Okay? Obviously, if the phone said his name and it has his thumbprint as the security thing to open it, it's his phone.
Right.
What you're saying is, I'm going to take 2 and 2 and make 4. He's got a portrait of battered woman, and then he's got a phone with searches about battered women. That may not be precisely 2 and 2 makes 4. That may be 1 and 1 make 2, but we've got to get to 4, but it's part way there. Because sadly, lots of people in this world may have those kind of pictures and may have those kind of interests.
Ding, ding, ding. There you go. That's it right there. People are sick, okay? And not only that, everyone's talking about these burner phones like this is like, oh my god, this is just some revelation, this is just some like complete and utter gotcha moment. But the man was into buying prostitutes, okay, on the reg. Like he was doing that actively while being married. So one could speculate that the reason for the burner phones was that he didn't want to get caught up by his wife while he was paying money for sex with strange women. And that could also explain some of the DNA on these the bodies of these women. Like, one question that I have is, was there any other male DNA found on any of these girls' bodies? How did they eliminate some other suspects that had previously been named, in relation to this case in particular, and also in relation to the girls themselves and their own personal lives? How were they able to eliminate all of those people, and why is that not being discussed? It just seems like our media has just become so dishonest. Back in the day, there used to be like investigative journalism where people would really dive into this shit, and like, just seemed like there was a little bit more prying and poking around and prodding. But it's like, nowadays they just sell you a narrative, and they expect you not to ask questions or even question what it is they're selling you. But it just doesn't work like that for me. I don't know. I have so many questions with this case.
But even if a judge says, no, that's enough, that proves it's his phone. Well, that's one message of the picture and of those searches.
Reports of what they took, looking at pictures of what they took. So we're kind of looking through the pieces here. But I think this is a really interesting discussion about what's being taken and what might play a role in his trial, which brings me to another piece. So the Daily Mail has a picture of investigators placing newspaper clippings in an evidence bin. Now, my take is they appear to be old newspaper clippings. We don't know what they say. We don't know when they're from. I do think it is interesting if they were clippings, let's assume for a moment, of the Gilgo Beach serial killer, in light of his alleged online search history. Going back to those burner phones, those fake accounts, he allegedly searched, quote, why could law enforcement not trace the calls made by the Long Island serial killer? Why hasn't the Long Island serial killer been caught? Long Island killer, Long Island serial killer phone call, Long Island serial killer update, Long Island serial killer update 2022. It goes on. And we know that a woman, I think an escort actually came.
And I feel like that's not all that damaging either. Like, people check. You could check my search history and probably find the wildest shit ever, because it's like people get curious, especially he was living in that area. I don't know. Again, I'm not saying this man, I'm not taking up for him. I'm not like caping for him. I'm just wondering, and I have questions, and I don't feel like they're being addressed. Any of the like outer, questions that might be surrounding this case, I feel like it's just all like diversion and, hey, trying to make things appear to be more serious than what they are, instead of discussing, this is how we know, this is how we eliminated other people, this is how we were able to. It just seems, I don't know, like I said, it just seems rushed. I don't know, guys.
Forward recently and said that she went on a date with Rex HEUERMANN, and he was asking her about the Gilgo Beach serial killer. And by the way, he was also allegedly looking up the victims as well. So I wonder if those newspaper clippings, let's assume they're of the Gilgo Beach killer. I imagine that might come into evidence to show he was looking about it. He was interested in it. Why else? It's not just a fascination. It's because he was worried about getting caught.
So that, unlike having the doll, unlike looking up porn or beating up women, is this case. And a fascination with this case certainly has, here's the magic word, relevance, right? Most of us don't get involved in other stuff, and go spend, well, I do now, right? My search history is probably like his, because you asked me to get ready for this case, for this program.
But that's understandable. You're talking about it.
I got a professional excuse, okay? Normally, right, that doesn't. So that courts could easily say that's relevant. That's in a weird way like souvenirs, right? Some fascination with this case. It certainly should not be enough alone to convict anyone, but it is a piece of relevant evidence that ought to come in.
Interesting.
And, speaking of souvenirs, I know they're looking at storage unit.
So that is just some of the evidence, quote unquote, that has been brought forth as, a way to lull the public, I feel, into just complacency. And again, my thing of it is that everyone's, and it's great, like if this turns out to be the actual suspect, and all he's been proven to have done is kill these 4 women, and whatever, we can get that convicted, that's a good day. That's what we want to see happen. Obviously, we want justice for victims of these horrific crimes, but I want to know who are the other victims, that they still have not even determined who these people are, which is wild to me, and who killed them. You know, this is not over. Like the mystery of the Gilgo Beach murders, it's not over, and the media is making it seem, in my opinion, and I'm already giving my opinion. Sorry guys, I can't even help it. But it just seems like they're kind of like washing their hands of this. Well, you know, there we go, we're done, and not really saying, well, okay, this is great, but let's look at the next piece of this case. And then the other thing was, like I said, there was 11 supposed bodies found on this stretch of land, but there was also 2 other bodies that were around the same kind of area, and also a suspect who was convicted of killing these 2 women back in the 90s that nobody seems to talk about, or I haven't seen talked about really anywhere at all. So let me show you this, guys. I found this. This is from 2017, and the reason why I bring this up is because in this article and in other articles that I found about this, they were speculating on whether the man who was arrested for killing these 2 young women here had done all of the killings, because by that time, by 2017, they had found, you know, all of the bodies, because the first woman who went missing, you know, was, I believe, in 2010, and then on, you know, while looking for this woman who was Shannon Gilbert, that's when they started discovering all these bodies, and then they started doing search after search after search and finding more, just more and more and more. But by 2017, when it appeared that they had solved these 2 murders in particular, they were trying to kind of tie all of them to this one guy. So let's get into it. Police may be close to cracking the decades-old Long Island Gilgo Beach serial killer case. In late 1993 and early 1994, the bodies of 31-year-old Rita Tangredi and 20-year-old Colleen McNamee were found 9 miles apart. Both had been strangled and bludgeoned to death. DNA samples were taken from the bodies, and the cases remained cold for over 10 years until an uninvolved man's misdemeanor conviction steered investigators toward the killer. Today, investigators see similarities between the murders and the decades-old Gilgo Beach serial killer case. So, Colleen McNamee was last seen January 5th, 1994, and Rita Tangredi was last seen hitchhiking on November 2nd, 1993. So, very close in time, too. I mean, that's only within, like, what, 2 months of each other? And on November 2nd, Rita was found nude in a wooded area off Esplanade Drive near South County Road in East Patchogue. What the fuck? So yeah, guys, as you can see, pretty similar areas. I mean, it's about a 34-minute drive from where the first woman was found to Gilgo Beach, where the subsequent rest of the bodies were found, and you know, so in the same general area, I would say, I would allege. Okay, so this is where Rita Tangredi was found nude in a wooded area. Okay, and then she had been beaten and strangled to death, and then 2 months later, the body of 20-year-old Colleen McNamee was found east of William Floyd Parkway in Shirley, New York. So a little further out. Okay, so granted, those 2 were in similar areas. Not very, very near Gilgo Beach, but we're basically trying to link all of these together when they came across this man here, who is John Bitrolf, who was arrested and subsequently charged and convicted for the murders of these 2 women. They were actively seeking to basically tie him to all of them, trying to lump them all together, even though there was different manners of death, different, areas of interest, things of that nature. So that's one thing that I have not really seen reported either. Were they able to eliminate this man as a suspect in all the rest of those murders? I don't know. It doesn't seem like people have really talked about this at all. But again, y'all let me know if I'm wrong.
It may be the most infamous unsolved serial killer case on the books today. A murder mystery Crime Watch Daily has been following closely near Gilgo Beach, Long Island, where at least 10 bodies, mostly strangled young women, found hidden in the brush.
These girls did not deserve to die the way they did.
But now, this bombshell development.
Don, did you kill those 2 women?
Could this Long Island man recently convicted of 2 savage murders be linked to some of the victims found on Gilgo Beach? At least one lawman is saying there's a chance.
All he said was that this could be the handiwork of John Bittroff, the carpenter.
John Bittroff has just been sentenced to 2 consecutive sentences of 25 years to life after being found guilty in the murders of 31-year-old Rita Tangredi and 20-year-old Colleen McNamee. Their strangled bodies found more than 20 years ago not far from his home in Manorville, Long Island, where the 51-year-old carpenter lives with his wife and 2 kids. The clinching evidence, DNA found on the victims matching Bittroff. Our WPIX affiliate reporter in New York, Mary Murphy, has spent years covering this story.
They had both been beaten pretty badly, and they were positioned in a certain way, so it was sort of obvious that the same killer had killed both of them.
And now, a startling statement that may link Bittroff to the strangled girls on Gilgo Beach, which is about 40 miles from his house. Assistant Suffolk County DA Robert Biancavilla made this statement to the Associated Press, quote, "There are remains of the victims at Gilgo that may be attributed to the handiwork of Mr. Bittroff, and the investigation is continuing."
He didn't get specific at all. He didn't elaborate, but of course alarm bells went off among us reporters.
That's because 3 years ago, when Bittroff was first charged in the Tangredi and McNamee killings, Suffolk County DA Tom Spoda said this:
"There is no evidentiary or investigative link between these 2 murders and any of the Gilgo victims."
So what happened to make them change their minds? The DA's office hasn't said anything beyond their initial statement, and Suffolk County Police aren't commenting. But it appears that there is a gruesome connection between Bittroff's hometown of Manorville and Gilgo Beach.
In 2000, the torso of an unidentified woman was found there in Manorville, Long Island. In 2003, the torso of Jessica Taylor was found in Manorville, Long Island. And it wasn't until years later that there were body parts found in the Gilgo Beach area that were connected to those 2 early victims.
So another thing that's odd is the fact that they did not find these bodies until years later, which is insane to me. Like, what was going on? Like, I mean, some of these women were missing since 2007, and it took years. So, I mean, it's just very bizarre. If they were only 25 feet from the road, some of these girls, I mean, it's like, what's going on? And the other thing that's very just bizarre and doesn't sit right with me is the fact that the identified victims, the ones that they know for sure who they are, at least for the most part, they've all linked those to someone. And it seems like the ones who are unidentified, where they have no idea who they are, those they're not really even talking about, besides showing that map of all the different victims and the locations of them. And it leads me to believe that maybe possibly some of these people might have been victims of sex trafficking or illegal immigrants who entered the country and we have no record of them, which is very sad. I mean, that's one of the bad things about one of the horrors of the open border situation that we have going on now, is that when something horrific like that happens to these people, or they get sex trafficked, which is the case a lot of times, I mean, this is the way things end for those people, and that's so inhumane and just horrifying. So I just don't understand why it's been this big hoopla. And obviously, yes, if you solve a murder of this caliber, it's fantastic news, as I've said before. But I'm just saying, there are still bodies that haven't even been identified. So I just don't understand the massive amounts of attention, and it seems like congratulatory behavior that's going on with this case when there's still so many questions at large. So the other thing that I wanted, or the other victim that was not named in that report there, but had been previously tied to this case, was Shannon Gilbert's.
Has been following the case closely, and we also followed this guy. Dr. Peter Hackett, tagged by attorney John Ray as the man investigators should be looking at. Ray represented the family of Shannon Gilbert, whose remains were found on Gilgo Beach in 2011. Just 2 days after her disappearance, Shannon Gilbert's mother says Dr. Hackett inserted himself into the middle of the mystery.
I got a phone call. He said, "My name is Dr. Peter Hackett. I'm calling to see if your daughter Shannon is there." I said, "No. Why? Who are you?" And he said that he ran a wayward house for girls. Shannon was there. She was upset. He'd given her some medication to calm her down.
And Ray claims in a wrongful death suit that Hackett was the last one to see Shannon alive.
State police. Yeah, there's somebody after me. I'm sorry? There's somebody after me. Where are you? There's somebody after me. Okay, where are you? There's somebody after me.
Where are you, ma'am?
I don't know.
You're driving right now?
No, I'm inside the house.
I'm sorry?
I'm inside the house.
What house?
I don't know. Can you trace where I am?
I'm sorry?
Can you trace where I am?
No, I can't. What's your callback number you're calling from?
Huh?
What phone number are you calling from?
Somebody's after me. Please.
Are you in Suffolk County or Nassau County?
I'm in Long Island.
Where on Long Island are you?
No. 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 No, stop, no.
Where in Long Island are you? In Suffolk County? Nassau County?
Huh? Why? Why are you calling me by my name? Why?
County, you on the line?
Stop. Please. Stop it, please. Please stop. Please. Can you shut the door?
No, time to go.
Please. Please. Please.
Go that way, please. Come on, let's go. Come on, roll down outside. Come on, go outside. Come on, roll down outside. Come on.
No, please.
Come on. Please, come on.
Please.
Come on.
Why?
Shannon interacts with Coletti. He invites her inside his home.
Shannon.
What's the matter? Hello. Somebody at you? Huh?
Hello? Hello?
Are you alright? Don't keep yourself hurt. Where are you going?
Oh my gosh. So,
Wait a minute. Where are you going? Where are you going?
does that sound like somebody who was having a natural cause sort of situation? Because to me it sounds like a whole lot of foul play. And were these men, subsequently investigated not only for the disappearance of Shannon Gilbert, but for the other young ladies and one young Asian man? I don't know. These are just the questions that I have. I'm not saying anything definitively or even alleging innocence on anyone's behalf. I'm just wondering, has everything been looked at thoroughly? Okay, so here from the Sun, no accident. Haunting position of Shannon Gilbert's body proves she was also a Long Island serial killer victim, family lawyer says. And this lawyer has been talking about and advocating for this girl for years, since she disappeared pretty much. And her family hired this investigator to look into what had happened because the police weren't doing enough to solve this crime, they felt. So he has been deep into this, and I'm going to show you guys some of his statements that he made also in a second, but let's read this article first. A sex worker whose death was initially deemed accidental may have been another victim of the Long Island serial killer, her family lawyer has claimed. Shannon Gilbert disappeared in the early hours of May 1st, 2010 after making a frantic 911 call claiming someone was out to get her. The search for Shannon led Suffolk County authorities to the discovery of 4 bodies along Gilgo Beach on the south shore of Long Island in December 2010. And those are the 4 victims that are now being tied to this man here. Megan Waterman, Melissa Bartholomew, Maureen Brainerd Barnes, and Amber Lynn Costello became known as the Gilgo 4. They were all sex workers believed to be murdered by a killer who would not be labeled as a suspect until almost 13 years later. Last week, Rex HEUERMANN was arrested for the murder of Megan, Melissa, and Amber. And he has actively said he is not guilty. He has pled not guilty. He has proclaimed his innocence. And he is also the prime murder suspect in Maureen's homicide. So Shannon's body was found a year after the other 4 sex workers in a marsh near Gilgo Beach, yet her death was deemed a tragic accident by the Suffolk County Police Department. John Ray, the family lawyer of Shannon, has maintained that her death was not caused by a drug-induced drowning, as had been previously reported by CBS as the department's stance, but rather by a killer that has yet to be identified. When the police claimed that she had wandered into the marsh and managed to kill herself, when I had seen the autopsy report where she's found face up, lying on a bush, and the police had claimed she drowned, that didn't make any sense. Shannon's cause of death in her initial autopsy was undetermined, but Shannon's family decided to get a second opinion. The second autopsy found that Shannon met a violent end, that she was strangled, Ray said in a previous interview. Ray was there when world-renowned medical examiner Dr. Michael Baden performed the second autopsy. When we looked at the bones, we were able to discern that the very small, significant hyoid bone in the neck was cracked on one edge. Baden's autopsy indicated that she did not die of natural causes, and it was consistent with homicide. Ray also pointed out that there was a hole at the base of Shannon's hyoid bone that was found in the second autopsy. It appears to be something was either drilled or pushed through that bone, and we couldn't determine what that was, but it was highly unusual. While Ray maintains that Shannon died by homicide, he said it is unclear who murdered Shannon and has never claimed that HEUERMANN was behind the alleged crime. So, interesting. Okay. So, let's get into his statements.
Suspected Gilgo Beach killer Rex HEUERMANN is due in court tomorrow, facing charges for murdering 3 women and is the prime suspect in a 4th. Another woman found dead in Gilgo Beach is Shannon Gilbert. Her family believes she was also the victim of a serial killer, even though police ruled her 2011 death as a drug-induced drowning.
John Ray is the lawyer for Shannon Gilbert's family, and he joins us now. Sir, thanks for being here. Shannon was last seen frantically knocking on neighbors' doors while on the phone with 911. So, John, how did police go from that to saying that this killing or this death was not a homicide, but was in fact a drowning?
The police concluded that Shannon had drowned before they had located her remains. They did not know where she was. So that the theory was absurd. In addition, they had plenty of evidence that Shannon had called 911, had been shouting to 911 over and over, "They're trying to kill me." She fled. She was screaming as somebody accosted her outside of the home of the John, where she had been, and she knocked on doors looking for help. There's not a scintilla of evidence that Shannon Gilbert ever went into the marsh where she is said to have drowned, none whatsoever. And the body, when it was found, was face up, laying with its head on a bush. So it's impossible for that to have occurred. The police have since changed their story and now say she died of a tragic unknown accident. These are homicide detectives who say this, who are completely ensconced in evidence, and they have no evidence whatsoever of what they're claiming. That is unheard of. We have overwhelming evidence that she was murdered. I brought in Dr. Michael Baden, world-renowned forensic medical examiner, and Dr. Baden and we looked at the bones of Shannon. We did an autopsy, and you could see that the hyoid bone, which is a bone in the throat, was fractured. When a hyoid bone is fractured, that means you've been strangled. Dr. Baden has said on Fox, only not even 2 weeks ago, she was murdered. So you have this evidence and other evidence all pointing to murder, and no evidence pointing to that she drowned or any other cause.
So, John, do you believe that Rex HEUERMANN killed her?
No, I don't say that. I don't know. We're not able yet to make any connection between Rex HEUERMANN and Shannon Gilbert. There just isn't any connection at this time. That doesn't mean there won't be, but we don't say that.
You said you were looking into it. You told our producers that. What are you doing to look into whether or not there could be that possible connection?
Well, I have a nice little team of researchers and investigators, and of course, I myself do the work. And we're looking through all the records. I've gathered up thousands and thousands of pages of records in this case for the last 12 years that I've been in it. And so we have tons of those things. We're going through them every day, and we're also researching what else we see on the internet.
The other thing that stood out to me, why was the client that Shannon was with before her death never named as a suspect? Any insight into that?
Yeah, Joe Brewer was the John, and he claims that he took a lie detector test and passed it. We found out that's not exactly true, and for reasons we cannot explain, he was never charged, even though it was he who was responsible for bringing a sex worker across state lines from New Jersey into Manhattan and then out to Oak Beach for the purpose of having sex, and did have sex with her, and then she called the 911. When did you ever hear of a sex worker doing that? In terrifying fear that she was about to be killed.
Yikes. John Ray, keep us posted. We'll be watching this case. If you have any updates, let our team know, because we'd like to bring it to our audience. Thank you, sir.
So that's another big one, guys, for me. I don't know. What do y'all make of this here? Have y'all even heard about this development in the news? I really have not seen much about any of this at all. Like I said, most of the news coverage on this case is all about Rex Heuermann. Rex Heuermann's wife has filed for divorce, what they found in his house, like all the so-called evidence they have, and nothing about all of these different extenuating circumstances, nothing about all of these separate but adjacent cases, it would appear. And my question is that, so say that there are just different, maybe several different serial killers, or maybe even just killers, individual killers who killed individual victims, or whatever you might have. How is it that they all knew about this stretch of land, and that this was like a dumping ground for New York serial killers or New York killers for them to bring their victims' bodies? If they're not connected, and if there's no way to prove that these were all the same person, just using different methods of killing these people, what's going on there? I mean, what kind of like dark web shit is really happening in New York, that there were multiple different killers who were using this area as a dumping ground for their victims? It's just bizarre to me. I don't know. Everything about this case, it stinks. So another thing that is very, very suspicious, and it just looks bad all around. Well, there's been apparently corruption that has been plaguing this investigation for years, okay? And it doesn't seem like there's really been any change in that case whatsoever, because the questions about Shannan Gilbert's disappearance and how they ruled her death an accident and have ruled it out as part of this Gilgo Beach serial killer investigation, highly suspicious. The two girls that were found, a decade before, or who went missing a decade or a decade and a half before, and then were found to have been killed by this other man. Again, highly suspicious. Very bizarre that they were initially linking these killings to him when he was found to have killed those two initial victims, but then did a complete 180 and no one talks about that anymore. But the most suspicious, I think, is the Shannan Gilbert, how they initially included her in this roundup of people, this roundup of victims, but now they're backing away from that. Her death altogether seems very suspicious to me, and I'm just wondering, what is the deal? Okay, so let's get into this video right here. Let's get into this article right here from the New York Post.
Chief administrator of the police, who's ensconced in the sex industry, and he's going to be the one to investigate the deaths of all these girls who were in that industry. That's like asking a robber to investigate the robberies of other robbers.
John Ray, the attorney for Gilgo Beach victims Shannon Gilbert and Jessica Taylor, blasted former Suffolk County Police Chief charged with investigating their murders. Telling the Daily Mail that James Burke was a cross-dresser who used drugs, fathered a child with a sex worker. Burke was accused of hampering the Gilgo Beach investigation by taking the FBI off the case to cover up his own misdeeds, which led to his conviction in 2016. So it was basically alleged that these investigators who were initially tasked with trying to solve these murders that were becoming a cold case very rapidly, and there was all kinds of stuff that came out about these individuals, in particular that Burke, the head of the Suffolk County, the police chief there. So what exactly was he accused of doing? Well, apparently he beat the hell out of a defendant, somebody who he had arrested for theft. And the theft that was committed was this defendant broke into Burke's vehicle and stole his sex toys out of his car. So for that crime, instead of your normal protocol of getting arrested and going to jail for theft, well, he got his ass beat because he took the police chief's dildo out of his car. I don't know if there was an actual dildo. It's an alleged dildo, okay? So he roughed up suspect Christopher Loeb in 2012 for snatching his sick stash of sex goodies, and also had drug-addled trysts with hookers, and once fled from a drunken wreck, according to court records and various reports. So Burke allegedly did a bare-bones investigation into the Gilgo Beach case, blocking out the FBI and other agencies working on the gruesome discovery of 11 bodies along Long Island's South Shore in 2010, claiming attorney John Ray, who represents the families Gilgo Beach victims Jessica Taylor and Shannon Gilbert, who they are now saying died on accident and was not a part of this entire situation. So, a lot to unpack right there, guys. I don't know. Like I said, I don't like it. I do not like it. So, what really happened with Shannon Gilbert? What happened with the case? How have they ruled out all of the other suspects or potential suspects? What do you guys think? Y'all, let me know. Please give me some help with this case. I mean, this really is a brain buster, if you ask me. I'm at a loss for words when it comes to what might have happened here. So I would love to know what you guys think about it, though. Please like the video if you like it. Comment and definitely let me know what y'all think about this case. And subscribe to the channel, guys, if you enjoyed the video and would like to see more. And yeah, that's it, guys. Y'all let me know. And until next time, you guys stay safe out there. And I will see y'all later. Bye.
I just tell the truth, and telling the truth is crazy in a world full of lies. If you mix brilliance with bravery, that we can ignite something. Even this conversation alone can ignite the people. The time is now to express and for people to believe in themselves. The time is now for it to be okay to be great. People in this world shun people for being great, for being a bright color, for standing out. But the time is now to be okay to be the greatest you.